I'm just, now I'm working to get Donald Trump in office, which is something if you had asked me a year ago whether that would ever happen, I would have said,
No way.
no way.
Why did that change so drastically?
Well, I gave a long speech about why that changed. That kind of traced my evolution, and it's hard to summarize it, but basically, I saw that the Democratic Party that I grew up with has disappeared. And, I grew up with a Democratic Party that was anti-war. It was really resistant to the domination of our government by the military-industrial complex and by other, corporate interests and large aggregations of economic power. It was on the side of the American middle class, the cops, firefighters, labor, small, Main Street businesses. It was opposed directly to Wall Street. It was on the side of civil rights and particularly constitutional rights, and most importantly, the First Amendment and freedom of expression. It was utterly antithetical to censorship. In fact, the word liberal was derived from a term meaning freedom of speech and free discourse, and all of those, and then it was opposed to anything that would toxics in the environment, anything that would harm children or vulnerable populations. Today, it's inversed all of that. It's now become the party of war. It's Vice President Harris's speech at the Democratic Convention was extremely bellicose. She was preceded, and I was shocked at this. On the stand, they let a former CIA director speak at the Democratic Convention. That would have never happened in the Democratic Party that I grew up with. They had a bunch of military leaders talking, who were, military contractors, essentially. They had, and it's become the party of Wall Street, become the party of big tech, big ag, big data, big pharma, and it's become the party of censorship. And if you look at what happened in 2020, and this is a really good, sort of a good indicator, President Trump in 2020 got approximately 50% of the American public voting for him. President Biden got 50%, but the 50% that President Biden got owned 70% of the wealth in this country. The 50% that President Trump got owned 30% of the wealth. So you've had this inversion where the Democratic Party has now become the party of the wealthy and of big economic interests, financial interests, and the Republican Party has become the party of the poor. And that's a direct inversion of the situation that I grew up with. And then finally, it also has become extraordinarily anti-democratic. When I grew up, my father and uncle were fighting for voting rights to make sure that every American could vote for the candidate that they wanted to vote for, whoever you were. But today's Democratic Party there's no democracy left. I mean, we had the abolition of all of the primaries, essentially. They got rid of the primaries to make sure that I couldn't run against Joe Biden. And in order to conceal the cognitive deficits that he had, which he could not, which would be revealed and were revealed ultimately as soon as he debated. And then when there was essentially a palace coup against him, he was replaced not by any kind of election, but, he is essentially his successor, Vice President Harris, was essentially chosen by an oligarchy of elites who we don't even know who they are. We have no idea how that process happened. And suddenly, without winning a single primary, without winning a single vote, we were told she's the only choice. I remember about 2 months ago, President Biden and Vice President Harris were ridiculing Vladimir Putin because he won his election with 88% of the vote. And they said, yeah, he only did that because he got rid of all of his opponents so he didn't have to run against anybody. And he controls the media in this country. Well, the Democratic
do the same
Party
thing.
It's the exact same.
is in the exact position now.